Football Then and Now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.
A warm welcome to this festive edition of Football Then and Now. I'm your host, Stu Palmer, and my co-host and cousin, Chris Hume, is here. And this episode, Chris, we've done this before. It's random football nostalgia. So we've not talked about any topics. We've done no background. We've done no fact-checking or nothing. We are going in balls to wall. This could go any which way with the topics. Like our vast knowledge of football collectively, I don't think it's going to be a problem, is it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, as you say, putting our heads together and just coming up with real things you remember, it can't be that hard, can it? Well, I hope to think it's not.
What's your earliest memory of football? Because I don't think I've ever spoken to you about that when we've been on this show, you know, really going back where you can remember it being on the TV, maybe.
It'd have to be on terrestrial telly, wouldn't it? Because, we're going back before the likes of Sky. It'd have to be like FA Cup games. I think I remember the 95 one against Tottenham when we won 4-1 and Daniel Amokachi decided to substitute himself on without telling Joe Royle. But, it worked out. I remember that clear as day. And obviously the final, we can't forget that because it's the only time we've ever seen anything of a trophy lift in our lifetime. But I just remember watching that. And Tottenham, obviously, were very good then. Klinsmann was, an elite striker. Amazing back then as well in the early 90s. And you feared for it. I think we sort of dragged ourselves through a dreadful season before Joe Royle came and saved us. But we weren't against massive opposition, were we, in the FA Cup up till the point we played Tottenham. And Alan Wright was at Ellen Road, wasn't it?
We were at Ellen Road for that, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember sort of looking at that and thinking, and I feared of Klinsmann, because Klinsmann, when he played against us, used to destroy us. Considering who he had at the back, your Dave Watsons, your Matt Jacksons, Gary Ablett's, very capable, old school defenders, but Klinsmann was such on his game, and the pace, the quality, because everything about Klinsmann back then was amazing. So I was always fearful of playing against him because he always scored against us quite often when he, in the very short time he was at Tottenham. But to my surprise, they just didn't turn up. And as I say, Amokachi turned up with a very rare time he did ever turn up, because let's be honest, he wasn't an amazing striker. He didn't score a load of goals, but he scored goals that counted, and which obviously was the semi-final. And it blew me away. It made me believe, because at that point we've been watching Dross for years, so it made me believe that we could do something, and we did. We won the FA Cup, and we had a great season the following year, didn't we? Unfortunately, in Europe, we didn't do fantastic, but the Dogs of War was what it was, and it was incredible to see and witness. Kanchelskis as well, another player that blew my mind when he came to us, how we got a player of his quality at the point where we were at, as a Premier League team in the early 90s, and he ripped it up as a player that I wish we could have kept and built around for years, but obviously we couldn't. And, he went off and did his own things. But, he's an Evertonian. His son's an Evertonian. So, as Alan Ball did say, once you're touched by Everton, that's it for life. And, that was probably my earliest. I think after that, it was going abroad then. And we spoke about this, and we spoke about, in retro terms of when Mike was on with us, going abroad and forgetting the Premier League and looking at the La Liga, and falling in love with players that I had no idea who they were, but just watching them in the way they played, like to say, Romario was my favourite player of all time, but because I didn't know what Samba football was. I didn't. We didn't get a lot of televised at that point, did we? So going abroad and watching things on the telly, when you had to put pesetas in the bloody telly in your hotel room to keep it going, it mesmerised me, because it's like you didn't see that in the Premier League. And like Spain at that time had an abundance of players that have come from all different countries, and they were playing there, and it was insane. And then obviously you with Italy and the Serie A, and then I watched that, and then obviously Italy with the teams in Italy were predominantly the strongest teams in Europe at the time, and the players that were there as well. It blew your mind, and it just showed you something outside the Premier League where it was all very raw and rough and ready, and they didn't have that quality. Where abroad they had all these different players from Brazil, Argentina, Holland. It just blew your mind, and I think that's probably where my most love started coming from between say 93 and onwards.
Definitely, mate. I remember Euro 92 being on in our house, and I remember it was when Thomas Brolin and Martin Darling absolutely tore England apart. Of course, Graham Taylor, it did not work with Graham Taylor at the helm, that it was catastrophic what happened there. They didn't qualify for USA 94 off the back of it. But yeah, I can remember Euro 92 being on. But it's very vivid memories of Euro 92. It wasn't until World Cup 94 where I really was switched on and knew what was going on. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, World Cup 94, Chris, what a tournament that was. And I remember sneaking the portable on at silly o'clock when I'd gone to bed and I was told to go to bed. And I can remember it was Brazil against Holland, and Beto, Romario, just amazing together in that tournament. And I could remember a bit more then, whereas Euro 92, it's very sketchy, little things. I can remember like Denmark and obviously Sweden and stuff. It was kits. I think it was more to do with the kits and things like that. But World Cup 94 was more, I knew, like I say, more about what was going on, the players, the different situations. Although when Maradona went up to the camera for that goal and he's going absolutely ballistic, not knowing what he was up to off the pitch, which caused that, I was like, who's this madman here? And he's, going absolutely crazy. He looked like the devil when he went up to that camera. I was kind of frightened by that. But it was even down to like the different stadiums that they used in America, Chris. You know what I mean? They had, I think it wasn't Yankees Stadium. I think it would have been the New York Giants Stadium at the time where Ireland beat Italy. The Rose Bowl in Pasadena, which was used for the final. It was used for other games as well. That Pasadena Rose Bowl, just seeing a bowl, an open stadium. I'd never seen anything like that before. You think of a roof on a stadium, don't you? So that open space, I'd never seen anything like it. It was all like first for me with USA 94. I can even remember Roy Hodgson being in charge of Switzerland for that tournament.
Jesus.
And I remember that game being on in your house in Park Road, because I remember the team news coming up on the screen, and I can always remember coach's name, manager's name, Roy Hodgson, and it was on in your house in Park Road, that game, but I don't know who their opponents were. I can't remember.
It's we love 94. As you say, it's a very pinnacle time in football for our sort of understanding terms of football. As I said, because I'm going back to what I just said before, we were so used to the Premier League, weren't we? And didn't really know much about what was outside the Premier League. And, watching the World Cup 94, going abroad, on your family holidays and seeing different things, it opened you up a bit more. And then you spent a lot more time, not obviously Everton's our number one and it always will be, but you started watching other games, watching other teams, and players that I say excited you through 94. You go and look at the team that they played for. Roberto Baggio, didn't know nothing about him until World Cup 94. And then, amazing to watch him then in the Serie A. Not his brother Dino, but Roberto was good.
Definitely. Bulgaria being an absolute force, not just with Stoichkov as well. They had Kostadinov, didn't they? They had Jordan Lechkov. I'm trying to think. There was Kostadinov. There was just loads of players that they had in that team, and they got so far in that tournament, and they had a fantastic tournament. And Sweden, I can always remember Sweden doing well in there as well. Thomas Ravelli in goal, and I remember the goalkeeper kits, the Adidas ones as well, because a lot of the club teams ended up having that as their kit for the season then, because I had the Rangers goalie top like that, and I can just remember Thomas Ravelli's kit was like blues and greens, like with black square edging on it, and they look so cool, and like Adidas, on a rounded collar centrally. It wasn't just the football, mate. It was all the different pockets of things, like the kits. The kits were amazing, and like the Adidas kits especially.
Yeah, I've still loved the night kit that Brazil had in '94. I loved obviously the yellow and the blue one were pinnacle, obviously, but that's my all-time favorite international kit. Was that maybe because obviously I fell in love with Brazilian football at that time, and the players that were there playing in front of me, well, on the telly, not in front of me, obviously, but I didn't like you. I didn't take notice of the grounds and the tops as much. I was like literally it was players for me, and I didn't appreciate the stadiums at that point as much as I'd say we do now. What I do now, you always have, and the kits I didn't appreciate because I was so used to the dross that Everton always had with 1-to-1 or Danker, and stuff like that, which was shite. But I still love them and I still wear them like they're like my throne of dressing gowns and stuff. But I just appreciate the players more, and I think I was stuck on all these players and dreaming of them playing for Everton, which would never have happened because they were too good for us, and we would never have been able to afford them at the time. And I just loved all that, and it was pure and it was fresh and it was new and it's not as mundane as it would be now. It's like you're going into this World Cup. I don't even care for international football. I obviously still watch the World Cup because it's at the end of the day, I like watching football no matter what. It's not just Everton. I do watch other games and what have you in competitions. But I was dead excited for the World Cup, not knowing what it was about per se. Because again, I was just single-minded was Premier League. And I didn't, I didn't really know much more about football in other countries and other competitions. And yeah, it opened the doors for me to understand things a lot better.
It was Dana Ross missing that kick as well when the goal goes splits that goal and she totally misses the target. The ball goes wide, but the goal still breaks in half. It was just like the typical American pomp, isn't it, for stuff, build up and stuff, opening ceremonies, closing ceremonies. Yeah, that stays with me, that as well. But again, yeah, it was just what a tournament that was. And Italy were very, very strong as well, and Brazil went on to win, didn't they? It was a penalty shootout, of course. But Italy had a hell of a run in that tournament. Although the Irish beat them earlier on, they had a fantastic win against them. They managed to get to the final. As you said, Roberto Baggio at the time, just, fantastic. Gianluca Pagliuca in goal at the time for them. Again, a goalkeeper that doesn't get enough praise. We spoke to Mike about him, didn't we?
Yeah.
Months ago. Just so many great players in that tournament, Chris.
You say about that, Pagliuca and Peruzzi, to me, and always be my two ultimate favourite goalkeepers. I love Peruzzi. I think Peruzzi for Juventus was a solid keeper for many years, and I think like him and Pagliuca, they don't get the Buffon touch, do they? Or the Donnarumma. I'm talking about Italian sense now. I might be wrong, and they might say they do in Italy, but for me, as a football fan, I don't hear enough about them and what they brought to the teams that they were in goal for.
100%. It was so good, mate. I miss them days. Of course, obviously the tournament is shared between America, Canada, and Mexico in the summer. So I know there's a lot of good stadiums over in America, of course, but it's great for Canada. It's great that Canada have got games coming there. It's great, great for their profile there and building up there. And Mexico, of course, there's going to be some wild, atmospheres there as well.
Yeah.
So the fact it's moving around next summer, that'll be really interesting.
Well, it's the going thing now, isn't it? That's obviously what they're going for, and I suppose it's a good way of getting more than one nation, involved in the World Cup. A lot of pressure on America, isn't it, this year? Well, yeah, next year to do something better than they would suppose they've normally done. I don't personally think that'll be the case. I still think they're a fair few years behind us. They have got solid players, don't get me wrong. There are a few players they're playing in Europe that are very good. Wisdom Mike, I think, who plays for Bayern Munich, a youngster, Brazilian one, American one, very good. You see a lot of potential there. But yeah, I'd say I'm looking forward to it. Not the times for the games because 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I'm too old. I like to go to bed early. but obviously I'll force myself, should I say? God, I got to force myself to watch football. And I watch them obviously because you want England to do well. You want Scotland to do well. I mean, it's a shame that Wales could potentially play. Is it Northern Ireland in the playoff final if they both got there? And then Republic of Ireland, you want them to get in there after all the heroics to get into the playoffs. And you know what? The leagues themselves, with the teams that are, or the international teams that are in it, quite interesting, and teams that have never been there before. We've never seen in the World Cup before, and it's interesting to see. Yeah, okay, they're not going to do fantastic, but it's good to see different nations be in the World Cup that you've not seen before. That's what I'm trying to say.
100%. I was thinking back, it's like World Cup 98. We've spoken about it, points on this show.
Yeah.
Of course, World Cup 98 was brilliant as well. It was so good. It was just France and all them players that came through to France at the time, and having home field advantage. I know it just wasn't about that, of course. They had the players, they had the caliber of players, didn't they, coming through as well? But that whole tournament as well, mate, it was just some fantastic memories of that. I remember being at Nana's house watching the opening game, which was Scotland and Brazil in 98, and how apropos Scotland's, back in the tournament, of course, not been in the tournament since 98. Yeah. And they play Brazil in the group stage. But I can always remember that opening game. I can remember Scotland, I think, lost 3-0 on the day. But it was like after school, and I can't remember the kickoff time exactly. It might have been like 4 p.m, our time. Just like memories of World Cup 98, Chris.
Mustafa Hadji.
Yeah.
Morocco.
Yeah.
God, yeah. Again, it's a different players. Like Karol Boborski, scoring. I think that was in the Euros. He scored the chip, didn't he? But these players, that sort of Stefan Givash and stuff like that for France, and these players that sort of moved on to the Premier League, and you were quite interested. I don't think they made much of a hit that they did in the World Cup at the time when they obviously came to the Premier League. But it's always interesting when you see a player break out in the World Cup or say the Euros, and then they come to the Premier League or what have you, and you're dead interesting to see how they got on. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think for me, the players I usually follow who I don't see coming and then they don't really work out. That's probably most of what's happened to me when I've watched players come from the World Cup and shine. For World Cup 98 it was just France, wasn't it? And just seeing all that talent and the talent they still got to this day. They've managed to keep the youth keep flowing, and the build up that they've kept on keeping all these world class players that keep floating in and out of the French team, as well as obviously the club careers. But they've managed to keep that as a good rotation. And I think Germany were that kind of team at one point, not so much now. But they always had a good infrastructure with the youth, didn't they? But France just seemed to me from 98 onwards have just kept that going. Spain hit a bit of a wall, haven't they, with the infrastructure of their talent as well, even though obviously they're back where they are as such now. But you look at the players that we remember for Spain in the mid 90s, late 90s. It's just I envy it, because you look at the nations, in the UK, and it's never there, is it? You get excited for a couple of players, but I mean, when you look at France, Spain, Brazil, even Holland or Netherlands, however you want to put it, there's always there's always a fair few players that you're dead excited to watch play for them. When in England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, I don't get that same feeling. I don't know whether it's just because I prefer my club football to my international football more so now than I did when I was younger. I just don't know. I'm always more excited to watch other teams play in the World Cup, Euros sort of thing.
No, it's definitely good point. Yeah, again, Chris, so much we could talk about this. I think it's just our closing episode, of course, for 2025. On the back end, of course, we've charted. We've got back in the UK chart, which is great, and hopefully into 2026, mate, we can get charting again. It's a goal, isn't it? It's always a goal for us. But the nostalgic stuff, mate, it's just great. It's absolutely brilliant looking back and some great moments internationally over the years.
There has been, and I'm probably gonna say I'll probably go back to I preferred it when we were younger to where we are now. Just because the state of football is different than it was when we were younger, and I think people even older than us can say the same for football for terms for them. But yeah, I love nostalgic stuff. I think this is what made us do the podcast per se at the beginning, wasn't it? Because we like to talk about stuff that we grew up with, and people can reminisce with us and put their own input in, or come on the show and tell us about their nostalgia sort of side of football, which is always exciting, entertaining to listen to, because there's always some sort of funny story to go along with it.
Definitely. Absolutely. Thank you so much to listeners and viewers through 2025. Thank you very, very much to all our guests. I did list our guests on socials earlier on in the month, maybe the back end of last month into this month. So thank you to them. Thank you to everyone in 2024 who came on as well. And as you can see, 95 episodes, and we're coming up to 2 years on February the 8th. That's when we did our first episode in 2024. So we're on course, mate, where we're probably at 104 episodes by the 8th of February 2026. But yeah, we'll get well rested over the festive period or not. And as you can see, we've got the festive decorations on screen.
I was going to say to you, the decorations around these us two here is more decorated than what we've got behind us.
Yeah, I know, mate. It's not good, is it? It's not good at all. But yeah, a bit of decoration to get into the festive mood. And no, again, just thank you to everybody. Thank you to the Sports Social Podcast Network as well. They look after us. They've been brill. And yeah, Chris, into 2026, can't wait to see how the season goes, and can't wait to talk about some more nostalgic stuff, because there's just so much we can cover.
Yeah, and it's an endless thing we can talk about and bring back up, and stuff that we've touched on but haven't gone too deep into. Lots to do. I hope everyone has a good Christmas, a good New Year, and what have you. And yeah, we'll see you in 2026.
Perfect. Take care, guys. All the best.
Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.